Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Today's Ghost 16 imagery kind of shows the three systems we're keeping a close eye on. The first one's offshore here. This produced some very rough seas and some very heavy rain along the coast, including a lot of coastal flooding. We then had the very deep, almost stacked low pressure system that's sitting right over the mid-south. The current position of the low is here, and it's going to take several days. It will be all the way through the weekend before this finally gets into parts of Maine. And I'll show you why it's kind of blocked up here, but this has delivered a lot of rainfall across much of the mid-south into parts of the Midwest. On the back side of this, extremely strong winds today. You can see as the sun was setting here, the dust being blown here in parts of the plains, and also we did have a fire here. But that third thing I want to point out is we do have some very strong winds coming out of the southwest, adding a lot more moisture here into the lower levels of the atmosphere in parts of the Pacific Northwest. But it's interesting just to kind of zoom in here and take a look in Texas, because as the sun was setting, you can see the dust, first of all, but we also had a fire here. Then we could see the smoke spreading from that. And even as this flips over to infrared, you can see the heat signature from that fire pretty clearly. Okay, our big picture here over the next several days is going to be one of a temperature change. So this is looking out there day 5 through 10. You can notice we've really displaced some of the colder air that had been in place over parts of Alaska and the Arctic and northern Canada. It's now been replaced with a lot of very warm air here, and we're starting to see that cold air really get let out in a series of high pressure cells. They're going to slide right along the front range of the Rockies down into the Central Plains. Now, this is going to be, it's cold. I mean, you can see temperatures might be, at some cases, 15 to 20 degrees colder than normal. But the question is about how long it's going to last and maybe what caused this pattern change. Because we had talked about something like this happening, well, before now. We thought it would happen, I think, getting into this last week of October, even a little earlier than that. The next piece of this is the precipitation pattern. A couple things to point out. Our first system, going to soak the northeast, all right? We then have, with those high pressure cells that are coming down in this area, we're going to push a frontal boundary out ahead of that. And that's going to increase our rainfall chances in through here and snow in parts of the high plains. I'll show you that in a few moments. And then the trough that was off the west coast, if you remember back to Monday's analysis, we saw it kind of retrograding to the west. Well, it is capable of sending some shortwave troughs through. We're going to see above average precipitation returning very soon in the west and also really into week 2. So I'll get to all that in a few moments. But for those of you thinking about snow, I'm just going to show you, this is through next Thursday morning, and we're looking at the probability of getting another inch of snow. So what we can see is with those high pressure cells coming in through here, we're going to push the air up against the mountains. It's going to give us some upslope flow, better chances of snowfall, plus there's a front lifting that cold air. And so we could see in this area, I mean, there's a 50 to 60% chance of getting an inch of snow, getting pretty far out into parts of Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming, and parts of South Dakota. Now, with the colder air tucking in around, from basically, Saskatchewan through Manitoba, Ontario, into Quebec, we could also pick up some snow there, including around the Great Lakes states. Okay, this pattern is temporarily blocked up by the fact that we've got this low, high, low setup, and we call it an omega block for a reason. Because it looks like the Greek letter omega. So it's these three systems here. So we get a lot of what we call meridional flow, north-south flow, and therefore it's not progressing east-west. So that's going to take this low pressure system on a slow pace into the northeast, unfortunately, through the weekend, which of course is a kind of a holiday weekend. Compare it to the low that's off the Aleutian Islands, which is wide open and moving. That's some of the difference here. You can also see the strong winds we've got going right now into the Pacific Northwest. So thinking about all that, let's go switch over to the high-res name and just see where things are going here. And let's get this to about 7 o'clock when I'm recording tonight. There we go. If we just play it forward, I just want you to notice this low is just going to slowly move here all the way through the next 60 hours. Ready? So going through the night tonight into tomorrow morning, Friday morning. Here we are getting out to Friday afternoon and evening. Now working our way into Saturday morning. This is 6 a.m. Central Time Saturday morning. That low is still there. It's quite broad. It's stacked up, so it's just not moving very quickly, which means the upper level low is sitting over the surface low. And as we play this out through Saturday afternoon into evening, now getting all the way out there to early Sunday morning, it's still sitting over the northeast producing some rain. And you saw the other system kind of skirt along the U.S.-Canada border, but the big show there is going to start after that when this big area of high pressure, see the isobars, starts to build into the plains. And I want to show you that by doing a multi-model comparison here. So as we normally do, GFS is on the left and the European is on the right. Pretty good model agreement. This is getting through Thursday into Friday, and out to Saturday. So we've already seen this far. Now the GFS is a bit more aggressive on some of that snow in southern Saskatchewan as we get into early Saturday morning. But they're both pretty well timed on that low pressure cell that's here kind of moving in this area. You can kind of see it also in the European there. And they're pretty well timed on the low that's moving up the east coast later on this weekend. They also both develop the same high pressure cell in through here. Now what you'll notice is that the GFS at this point is not as aggressive at developing precipitation, especially snow here. And I'm going to let you know, the European has gone back and forth, each new model run, projecting more snow into the plains and then less. And what you've got from the 12Z is another one of those more snow situations. So this is 1 a.m. Monday morning. As we then get into 7 a.m. Monday morning, and then toward the afternoon, the European's really aggressively going after snow here. We're going to take a look at those totals in just a few moments just as an idea. But comparison, right? So we need to see how dry this air is, how much lift we get here on the high plains to understand what we should expect. But as I showed you earlier, the probability of getting that snow is 50 to 60%. That's what I want you to really kind of hinge this on right now. You'll then see that throughout the day on Monday, so this is Monday afternoon and evening, the GFS does produce that snow there, but just not quite as aggressive as the latest. And as the front pushes south, we could get some scattered showers that have hit it on Monday night. We also get another wave of moisture coming into the west coast, as we saw there with those troughs pushing into the west again. That's the first high pressure cell, and it pushes to the south. Now you're going to see out by midweek next week. This is next Wednesday, midday. Both models have a front sitting here, all right? And the European is trying to develop a little bit of a low in parts of the mid-south. So this could be a wet midweek time period right in through here and then running up into the Ohio River Valley as you see there. And then from there, as we play this forward, there's another high pressure cell. Both models have it. It's right here. And that's also going to push more snow, see it right here in the models, along the front range of the Rockies. And while we spread that rain toward the northeast here, the next high pressure cell comes down, and it could also just add up more snowfall there. Now, to give you the total kind of rainfall amounts on this, let's just look at the European, because the models are close enough here. So first system number one moves on out. Chances of picking up an inch to an inch and a half are relatively high as this gets into the northeast. We then see coming through the southern Canadian prairie, that's our chance at snow right in through there. Here we are out on Sunday evening. Let's now play this out into Monday into Tuesday. Now, as I rock back and forth, you see the next kind of two things. The high pressure cell sliding south, increasing the snow and rainfall chances here, and that next wave coming into the west coast. As we then play out to Wednesday into Thursday, the European model is pretty aggressive on that frontal boundary, allowing for some low pressure to develop along it. We call it a baroclinic zone. It's just a good way to start to get the atmosphere to spin in a nutshell. So we could watch for some low pressure development in the mid-south late next week. And that could, of course, ride up the East Coast. And so we see above average precipitation in through this sector once you get out there day 7 through day 10. Now, comparing the models, we've got in these colors, this would be where the European is wetter, and this would be the GFS. And I just want to point out that the European is the most aggressive on what's happening here in the southern plains over toward the mid-south, whereas the GFS has a more of a wetter bias that kind of stretches in this area. So again, the European wetter here, the GFS wetter on the systems coming into the northeast. European's also wetter on the next few systems coming into the west coast. I want to talk more about those in just a few seconds, but I want to show you this. This is the latest data from the European all the way up to next Wednesday night on snowfall. Again, we will not use this to measure or to forecast what we think we're going to measure. We're just looking at it for placement at this point. But it does have that snow in Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas. We'll watch out for that very carefully. Remember, as I said, the Europeans really flip-flop a lot on this, so we'll keep an eye on it. Chances for snow, though, here, I mean, we've got cold enough air in place that in and around the Great Lakes in Ontario and Quebec, we could pick up some snow as well. Same thing right here in this part of Alberta, pushing up against the Rockies. Okay, precipitation month to date. We're looking at by climate district here. And I just want to highlight a few things and compare this to soil moisture. You see a lot of single digits on this map, which represents some places having an extremely wet October. Was it forecast to be this wet at the end of September? No, it wasn't forecast to be dry, but it certainly wasn't forecast to be this wet. Since we mentioned those drier areas, look at the high plains. Now look at the western plains down here in New Mexico and Texas, and then this section of North Carolina, right in here in Wisconsin, and then the rain shadow effect, very strong, coming out into this part of Montana. Now you could imagine that, given that, we would see this in the soil moisture pattern. And this is the latest 16-inch or 40 centimeter soil moisture percentile, and it reflects that precipitation map I just showed you quite well. What about week 2? As we get out there, both models are really painting the same kind of picture. They've now allowed that trough, that had moved to the west to come back toward the west coast of the United States. So this is going to give us a wetter look along the west as we just bring in that southwest flow. But in the midsection of the country, you end up getting some convergence here. Produces that high pressure, gives us a little bit of a drier look to the north, but we may get split flow. There could be a high to the north and a low to the south, which is why when we look out there in the week 2 time period, while we certainly have broken down that big ridge feature, we see that the models could be wetter than normal. Could be wetter than normal here, but certainly above average on the west coast. And we'll just need to see if these troughs do eject at times into the plains. But otherwise, with convergent flow, this area is going to favor more drier conditions. And that seems to be pretty clear in both the GFS and the European at this point. All right, from there, let's talk temperatures quickly here. This map shows you the next 7 days for frost potential. That's shown to you in gray. And we've certainly got some colder air that is going to be coming in here. I actually think that the line is a little bit too conservative. I think it'll get farther south than this because the cold air coming in at the end of this 7-day time period, usually the NDFD doesn't fully forecast its depth. And you saw it earlier, right? I mean, this is what I'm talking about. European is very aggressive on that cold air getting let out there. Until then, though, I would like to show you the daily highs. So getting into tomorrow, Friday, since I'm recording this pretty late on Thursday, that upper level low, that stacked system, quite cool here. We're going to have warmer temperatures in Montana than we will have in parts of the southeast. But Montana, it's short-lived because by Saturday into Sunday and Monday, that cold air is really going to get let out. And it's going to stick around for a while here in this section of the country. It took you all the way to next Wednesday. You still see that colder air in place. So through day 10, this is what we are looking at. And we talked about this at the beginning. How long does it last? I'll take you out there to day 10 through 15, and we can see that we could get a brief warm-up in the midsection of the country as that cool air exits east. But the main story I'm going to give you for the month of November and early December is be prepared for a lot of flip-flopping temperature patterns. And here's my reason why. The MJO was here in October, moved here at the end of October. It's forecast to stay here and then go back over here by the time we get back into November. If it just keeps going back and forth in this area, we know that that gives us kind of a polar opposite temperature pattern. So when you see the European model's forecast for the time period of November 10 to December 10, looking mild in through here, don't think that it's going to be a situation where every day is mild. In fact, I actually expect this to fail more often than not over the next week in terms of just giving, the next month, in terms of giving you a map that shows you a whole temperature pattern of that time period. But let's go look at precip, because honestly, I actually buy into this map quite well. Above normal for the west, we keep plowing those deep troughs into the west, we're going to get this. They will come out into the plains, which is why we see above normal rainfall into this area. And to start to see drier conditions in the south and drier over the east, that would be very consistent with our La Nina. I think that's where we're going to finish up here. Because this La Nina, look at the blue-green coloring through here. That tells me that we got some strong trade winds pushing that cold water farther and farther to the west. We have the cold water in the Gulf of Alaska coming off the west coast. This is part of the negative PDO pattern. And what we expect it to continue. Take a look at this animation. This is the surface of the Pacific Ocean here from South America on this side to Australia here. And there's a lot of cold water that's still going to surface. I'm projecting a peak of this La Nina around January, and I think it's going to fade quickly after that. All right, that's at least what history would teach us. Okay, we'll wrap it up here. Appreciate your attention today, and we'll talk to you again on Monday. Thanks.